Hi, and welcome to using the LogicMonitor.Api using Visual Studio Code. So we're going to start on a brand new installation of Ubuntu. We can start the web browser and we're just going to search for Visual Studio Code. There we are, here's the link, and we're going to download it for Ubuntu. Here's the link. Just open it with software install. That's probably a good way of doing it. So now that's downloaded, that's opening up in the installer. And we can just hit the install button. Great, so that's installed now, and we can close this. And we can also close Firefox. Start that by running code from the search bar. And then we have it, Microsoft's IDE for Linux, Windows and Mac. So let's dismiss these notifications. And we'll start off by using the F1 key to bring up this dialog here. From here we can install languages, we can install extensions, and let's do that now. So install ext, and we can see that we can install extensions from here. So the first one we're going to install is Sharp. And you'll see that that requires a reload in order to work. So we will reload to activate that extension. The other thing we will need is the .NET framework for Linux. So again, we open Firefox. We search for the .NET Debian package. We can see here .NET downloads for Linux. And we need the .NET Core 2.1 SDK. Open a terminal window and paste them in. So because we've got some sudos in here, we're going to do these one at a time. Let's get the wget first. Then we're going to execute this move. And then the rest of the commands should execute as normal, because we've already done a sudo. And then we just need to execute these final commands here. And there we go. The last little step may take a little while. I fast forwarded that for you. So with .NET Core installed, we can now install some final requirements into Visual Studio Code. Again, F1 if you want to install extensions. You can see that that is already selected, but if it wasn't, install ext, and you can see it would pop up on the list. And we're also going to install new package manager. So click on install, and we can reload. Okay, with that reloaded, we can change into our demo folder, and we can now type .NET new console, and that will create a new console application in the demo folder. If we click on the files icon, we can open this folder. And you can see we have a few files here already. We have program CS and the CS proj file. So the CS proj file defines the project, and because we're going to be using some later language features, we're going to add a new property group. And in here we're going to just request that the latest language version is used. So we need to add these 3 lines here: property group, lang version latest, and end the lang version and property group tags. Remember to save that. Control S will save. And let's just check that that will. So let's go to terminal. If you hover it, you can see what the shortcut key is. And we will run .NET build. And we can see that the build has succeeded. So the program that we have built is this one, simple hello world. And if we run that with .NET Run, we get the output as expected, hello world. Now you can see here that the system is suggesting that we install build and debug assets, so we can select that, and they are now available to us. Now I'm going to move this window over to the right hand side by clicking on this button. And this means we can see our code and our execution side by side. You don't have to do that. Okay, we're now going to change the signature of our main method to be async task of int. You can see here we have squiggles under some problematic items, so you can move your cursor to those and hover over them, and you can see that it's hinting that we need to include the task class. So to do that, the easiest way is to type control dot and select from the drop down the top one it's suggesting using system threading tasks. Now all that will do is just help you by typing these words up the top here, but if ever you're missing classes or namespace, you can include those by simply using control dot and selecting from the menu. So we can see there's another problem in main. Of course this method is now required to return an integer asynchronously, so we can just do that by adding return 1. Code will then complain that we're not running this method asynchronously, but that's just a warning. We can ignore that for now. So let's just check that this still works. Remember to save the file. You can see that this dot here is present, which means it's not saved. If you save it, it turns into an X. We can now do a .NET run, and it will build for us and run that new code. Notice that we get a warning that we have an async method which lacks an await operator. That's fine, that still works. We'll come back to that later. Okay, so let's get rid of this hello world line, and we're just going to put in a simple try-catch block. We can then use C#'s string interpolation to print the full stack trace of that exception out, should we have a problem. Okay, so now let's do some asynchronous code in here using the LogicMonitor.Api. So the next thing to do is to press F1 again, and we are going to install a NuGet package, add a package, and the package we're going to add is LogicMonitor.Api. If you hit return, you'll see it will provide a list of options for you. There is only one, called LogicMonitor.Api. And you can select a version. I advise you use the latest version. In this example, we're using 2.0.2. Okay, so if you're wondering what that's done in the background, all that's done is in our CS proj file, it has added a dependency here to LogicMonitor.Api version 2.0.2. Okay, so now we are going to create a portal client. Okay, so we can see here that we don't actually have this namespace available to us. You can see here that we need to execute the restore command to continue. I could just click on this link, or we can just run .NET restore. And that is installed. Now we can see that we have this namespace available. We can now see that if we hover portal client, we now have the IntelliSense available to us. So we're going to use this method here, which is subdomain, access ID, and access. So let's create those first of all. And I'm just going to go and fetch those from the portal. Okay, these can be obtained from the settings tab, users and roles, user, and for now we're just going to add a user. We're going to make it API only access, and we'll give it a username and create an API token. You can copy this into your buffer. The access ID will be visible to you in the future. The access key, this is the only time you will ever see it. So we're going to paste that into the access ID. And we're going to copy the access key, or hit the copy button, and paste that into the access key in the code. Remember to save it, and remember to set some rights. So for now we're going to set manager rights. You shouldn't really use administrator for anything. Okay, so we now have a demo API user, and we have the subdomain set up correctly, the access ID, and the access key. We can now use these in constructing the portal client. And we can see that IntelliSense is happy with that now. So to check this is working, we can set a breakpoint at the end of the code here, just by clicking in this area, or by pressing F9. And we can now debug. As we do so, we see we hit this breakpoint here, and we can now hover these items and have a look at their contents. Access ID is a string, access key string, and portal client we can see is an object. We've got some default setup here, default cache time span, although we're not using it, and we can see other details about the portal client itself. Okay, we can stop the code here by pressing this button, or Shift F5. And let's just get a list of all of the devices in the portal. Devices equals await portal client dot get all async, and we're going to get the devices. Now you'll note here that we don't have the namespace for device. Again, click on it, press Control dot, and you'll see that it's hinting to you to use the LogicMonitor.Api devices namespace. Once we have all the devices in, we can iterate over them with a for each. And let's just print something out about each one. Let's print the name. Which is actually the host name for the device. And in brackets, let's put the display name. Once again, we can go to the terminal, make sure that we've saved the file, and we can use .NET Run to run the code. Perfect, there we go. We're interacting with the LogicMonitor.Api. We're using asynchronous calls, and we have a list of all the devices in the portal. Well, I hope that was useful, and next time we'll explore a few of the other namespaces available in the LogicMonitor.Api NuGet package.